So we are now officially launching this event. Excellencies, dear colleagues, good afternoon to who is, good evening to who is with us at the International Conference Center in Geneva, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to who is with us on WebEx, so is now watching the recording of this event. We have the pleasure to welcome you today for a side event to the meetings of the Conference of the Parties to the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions, organized by the Secretariat of the Minamata Convention on Mercury, the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Convention Secretariat, the Secretariat of the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, known as CITES, the United Nations Information Portal on Multilateral Environmental Agreements, or INFORMEA, within the framework of the Geneva Environment Network. Our session this evening is bringing together various knowledge management initiatives from multilateral environmental agreements that contribute to facilitating the parties' work in the implementation and compliance of the respective conventions in order to accelerate environmental progress. My name is Diana Rizzolio. I'm the coordinator of the Geneva Environment Network, and I will have the pleasure to moderate this event. And for those who wouldn't yet know the Geneva Environment Network platform, let me briefly mention that we are a network of more than 100 institutions and secretariats based in Geneva that make this region one of the main hubs for environmental governance. We are administrated by the United Nations Environment Programme, and we are supported by Switzerland. We organize various networking activities, including regular multi-stakeholder roundtables and briefings on major environmental trends. And all the institutions that are speaking today are indeed part of this network. Before we start with the opening statements of this event, let me remind you that the documents presented, the summary, as well as the video of the event will be made available on the webpage of the event, and the link is being shared on the screen. Let me also add, for who is online, that the transcription is available at the bottom left of your screen. Have a look at the current slide, which shows where to access automated transcript in 100 languages. And so we will now proceed with the first part of this event, with the opening remarks. And we will start by the Secretariat of the Conventions that have made us come here all together today. We have the pleasure to have with us Carlos Martin Novella, the Secretary of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions, who will deliver the first opening remarks. And we will then hear opening remarks by Patricia Cameri Mbote, who is the Director of the Law Division, who should join us online if she manages to enter WebEx. And we have also with us here in the room Monika Stankiewicz, who is the Executive Secretary of the Minamata Convention. So with that, Carlos, over to you.
Thank you very much, Diane. And first of all, let me apologize on the name of Rolf Payet, the Swedish Secretary, who is engaged in some ongoing consultations and is unable to join us. And in fact, I have to apologize twice, because as soon as I finish my opening remarks, I have to run to the consultations. But my colleague, Osmani, will stay with us. And if there's any questions or debate after the event, he is much more able than me to deal with the technical matters. So first of all, I would like to welcome Monika, the Swedish Secretary of the Minamata Convention, Patricia, the Director of the Law Division, and to all the members of this panel, presenters, and dear participants. It is my pleasure today to be here discussing how we can support parties' environmental action through data and knowledge management. With the rapid development of the internet and other technologies, the world is becoming ever increasingly interconnected. Such a few decades ago, we were struggling to put together resources that could permit us to print scientific publications on paper and make them accessible to scientists and decision makers around the world. Today, we can do this with a few clicks on our internet-connected computers. And we can reach thousands of people in different target audiences, even in different languages. And one example is the event that we are having today. How could imagine this kind of side events just a few years ago in our COPs. Collaboration online has also been accelerated very fast during and after the pandemic. And now we have very powerful tools that allow us to stay connected and meet our peers virtually to anywhere around the world. While technology is moving fast, More efforts are still required in the generation, collection, management, and distribution of scientific data and information that can be trusted and used for environmental action and decision-making. Our conventions have put together processes and initiatives to move in that direction, such as the Science Policy Interface, various national reporting processes, collection of data to evaluate the effectiveness of our conventions, and in this way, move forward on implementation. We are convinced that more can be done in this area, and with the support of the new tools and technologies, make the data and information more relevant to measure and implement the SDGs. The UN Secretary General's Data Strategy for Action by Everyone, Everywhere is our agenda for the data-driven transformation. His vision is to build a wall of the UN ecosystems that unlocks our full potential of data potential for better decisions and stronger support to people and the planet in the moments that matter the most. The strategy is currently being implemented and has triggered a numerous number of initiatives, including the UNEP Digital Transformation Sub-Program. It focuses on accelerating and scaling environmental sustainability by applying data, digital technologies, and solutions to UNEP's key activities, products, and services, and ultimately delivers its own key action areas: climate, nature, and pollution. At this meeting, you will learn about a number of projects and tools from our presenters. These tools have been developed in the context of the InfoMEA Knowledge Management Initiative that has been in operation for the last 14 years. Thanks to the final contribution from the European Union, where 22 MEAs, UNEP, and other organizations are cooperating, sharing data, information, and best practices with the aim to support our parties and stakeholders in taking informed actions in the implementation of the conventions. I wish you a very good event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carlos. And as we move on, Patricia is not yet, she's joining. We will have the pleasure now to hear from Ms. Monica Stankiewicz, who is the Executive Secretary of the Minamata Convention on Mercury, her opening remarks. With that, Monica, over to you.
Thank you so much, and good day, everyone. And thank you to you and through you to Rolf Payet for hosting us, and of course, all the best luck in wrapping up the negotiation during BRS COPs. And thank you also to you, Diana and Jen, for making this event happen and putting it together. We will also have a number of presenters during today, so I'm looking forward to the presentation and hearing from all of you. But I would especially like to welcome our colleague from Canada, who will be joining us to present, I would say, a country perspective and user perspective for one of the digital solutions that we have offered from the Minamata Convention. Let me start by stressing the extreme importance of the partnership in InfoMEA. I have to say, for me personally, it's sometimes quite intimidating because it's of course full of technical terms. But I also, with time, have learned to really appreciate the work that is being done within InfoMEA and also opportunity it creates. Through participation in InfoMEA, we also have gained some confidence to do some necessary steps and to make necessary proposal to parties to the Minamata Convention, so we can also join this journey of digitalization and also where we can contribute to this InfoMEA community of practice, where the best solutions are being provided, where we are benchmarking what the best way forward is, and also where we can pull resources and ideas so we can work together instead of each of us separately. And that all helps us to implement our respective mandates in an effective way and to serve parties to the respective MEAs in the best possible way. And one example, or where we from the Minamata Convention have been trying to be part of the journey, is through including in the program of work a special component on digital strategy. I was very pleased to see that parties to the Minamata Convention, the previous COP, approved such a new component in the program of work. And building on this, and also on the meeting of the Informia steering committee last year, we are putting also in our agenda for the next COP a specific item on knowledge management and digitalization, and we will also put forward a proposal for a digital strategy. And this is also, of course, also rooted in the UN Secretary General data strategy and roadmap that you, Carlos, have mentioned, and also the fact that there is in MTS also a distinct component on digitalization. So we feel backing of the entire organization in terms of also exchange of ideas and learning these best practices. As we also learn to understand all the, and when say as we, as I learned to understand all the opportunities that comes with digital technologies, it also responsibility to learn that there are certain necessary components that goes into the, for example, the ethical aspect, and how necessary it is to put in place various standards and principles, how these emerging technology to be operated and what they are used for. So I would say with appetite for more digitalization, there's also this responsibility, including also to make sure that when the different solutions we create within our MEA's world, that they are equally accessible by all parties and all stakeholders within parties. So there's also the need to ensure inclusiveness and gender mainstreaming. So these are also important components. And then with the solutions we learn from other MEAs, we also can build some good examples from Minamata Convention Secretariat, and this will be presented today to you. So I hope you will follow with interest. We have developed the online reporting tool that in a quite rapid way, if I can say so. So we'll hear more about it today. And also most recently, we have piloted a creation of I would say the dashboard that automatically generated about the Minamata Convention related JEF projects. So we have created connection between our website database and JEF database, which have raised some interest from other MEAs to possibly follow and then add and to build even more robust database of interoperability in the future. So with that, I think I would like to finish and just to, of course, wish you all an exciting event. I hope you have still keep energy high for the next 1.5 hours. It's here in Geneva, it's already after 6, but I appreciate your attendance and your willingness to contribute to this event. So thank you so much, and over to you.
Monica, and I'm very happy to inform you that Ms. Mbote is here with us. So she's joining us from Nairobi. So Ms. Mbote, we have Carlos, Martin Novella, and Monica have already delivered their opening remarks. And we are very pleased to have you joining us also online, and the floor is yours. You are muted. You just need to unmute yourself.
My apologies for the technical hitch. It seemed like I would never get online. Distinguished delegates and participants, Executive Secretary of Minamata Secretariat and Executive Secretary of BRS, thank you very much for the opportunity to address this event on behalf of UNEP, together with the executive heads of BRS and Minamata conventions. UNEP is proud to facilitate Infomea alongside this impressive group of MEAs who collaborate on knowledge management to enhance MEA implementation and jointly address our 3 planetary crises with the unwavering and most gracious support by the European Union. First of all, let me express my deep gratitude to the Joint Secretariat of BRS Conventions for its long and visionary hands-on support to the overall initiative over many years. Rolf and his team have been invaluable champions in shaping knowledge management approaches with the group over the years. And Monica of Minamata has also been highly inspirational. sharing great examples of the recent work on reporting systems, dashboards, and collecting project information. I would also like to acknowledge the great work of the CITES Secretariat and the Secretary General's long-lasting support, not only as the co-chair of the Infomea initiative, but also as an early visionary in the field of e-learning on MEAs. The Infomea portal is a valuable tool to gain a bird's-eye view of the legal framework around environmental issues that cut across the mandates of different MEAs, as so many do. Yet, even beyond this, Infomea is among the largest communities of practice among MEAs. It has been working for over a decade to harmonize information systems across MEAs, share experiences between secretariats, and develop better and more tailored tools to navigate all the normative data. As Infomea enters its fourth phase, we are refocusing on how to make this tool and community of practice as useful as possible to its original target audience, national focal points, and MEA negotiators. Of the number of useful tools that will be presented today, I'm particularly proud that we will be able to, for the first time, show the brand new negotiator section of the Infomea platform, something we hope will help negotiations at COPs as well as other intergovernmental processes in support of environmental issues. In terms of long-standing resources that continue to develop, I would also like to draw your attention to Infomea's e-learning platform, which provides short and concise introductory courses on the Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm, and Minamata conventions, developed in close cooperations with the secretariats. In the last year, these have been supplemented with courses for more specific user groups on chairing meetings, on the plastic wastes amendments, or on gender in chemicals and wastes. In an accessible way, these explain and bring into focus key provisions and procedures of each of the three conventions, the meetings of which bring us all together here today. Let me conclude by encouraging all of you who are committed to protecting our environment and human health from damage by chemicals and wastes to use and spread the news about the tools presented today, which are all champions in the context of UNEP's digital transformation effort. I thank you and wish you very fruitful deliberations.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Mbote. So we will now move to the next part of this event. We will bring various the presentation on various tools that have been developed by various actors. So I will ask the colleagues to join the panel. And we apologize for this little moment. And we wait here in Geneva that everybody is seated to proceed. Thank you very much. So we will proceed now with various presentations, and we will start by discussing how the multilateral environmental agreements are cooperating on knowledge management to support the parties and other stakeholders. I see that in this room we have both the parties and other kinds of stakeholders. So for these presentations, we have the pleasure to have with us Osmani Pereira, who is the Chief of the Information and Conference Services branch of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions, and who will start with this round of presentations. So Osmani, you have a little remote control close to you. I know you have some slides that you would like to share with us. So feel free, yes. So you have the floor.
Thank you, Diana. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this side event where we will share with you some of the experiences that we had over many years of pushing the information, data, and knowledge that we have and we process in our conventions into systems that can be helpful for our parties and other stakeholders of the conventions. So I will focus my presentation on basically setting a bit the stage for other presenters who are going to give you more details on the different tools. So I will briefly touch on the power of data and information in general, and you will see the details. I just put that these are my objectives. I would say it's more my talking points rather than my objectives. So I will also briefly mention what it looks like in knowledge management context for a secretariat of an MEA. And we will also discuss, or I will brief you a little bit about the cooperation that the MEA Secretariat have started, and other organizations such as UNEP and IUCN, FAO, to get the initiative of the Informia running. I will briefly also try to convey in a few words the principles of the functioning of Informia from the knowledge management point of view, and also brief you on the different stages that we have done throughout the 14 years on the Informia. And then at the end, maybe if we have time, I can briefly explain what are the challenges that we have faced, and how do I see the future of technologies and knowledge management, both through the Informia initiative, but also maybe within each of the MEAs and in general. So the power of data and information. Today, as we heard from our executive secretaries, the age of information technology is really bringing a lot of opportunities for many organizations, and data and information becomes a critical asset for the modern way of doing business. So many organizations have created value by empowering their clients with data. Big data sets is the word now that we hear everywhere in the news, and that companies, big companies that are basically making business on the internet are using those big data sets and information and knowledge in order to help their clients and facilitate a faster turnover in their businesses, and definitely increasing productivity. This is something that we aim in the UN also to bring to the UN. You're not there yet. But the importance of data and information for decision making is being recognized by the Secretary General, and a strategy for data strategy for action by everyone everywhere has been launched already a couple of years ago, and it had triggered a number of other initiatives around the world, including in UNEP and in MEAs. This is by far not the only initiatives that in the international community we have seen on data and information, but with the aim to just move into the more details of what I wanted to brief you, I will just move on. Let me move a little bit into the management context of what we do in the secretariats of the MEAs in terms of knowledge management. I would say that I have divided my slide into two groups. I am not going to read all of them. Simply, we have the first group where these are the official records that normally a secretariat has to maintain in order to operate, in order to run meetings, in order to run programs, and so on. And the last ones that I have at the end, that has more to do with capacity assistance and support to parties, and that also includes training activities and the production of recommendations that are based on science. These are a little bit more, I would say, complicated to produce because it requires a lot of rigorosity from the scientific point of view. And so therefore, you will see how when we started working on the Infomia, we concentrated on the quick wins, which represent the clearinghouse functions, if we want to call it in one way, of these MEA secretariats, which are the records keeping functions of our processes. So early in the stages of the implementations and of the conventions, we all understood that there are many similarities in the data that we have to manage, and therefore it made absolutely a lot of sense to group together the number of MEA knowledge management specialists and then discuss those issues together. And the UNEP Law Division actually helped us to achieve this goal by putting a framework that allow us to meet, discuss, and exchange experiences. And that is how the Infomia initiative was born. And the first meeting was in September 2009. And at that meeting, as I mentioned, we were focusing on the quick wins and the things that we all knew how to do. And the objective was to basically come up with mechanisms in which we could afford systems to share the data that we were processing in the MEA secretariats. And those were, the meeting information, the calendars of events, the COP decisions, which was something really very important from the feedback we had from parties at the COPs, the national contact information, which is absolutely critical also in the daily operations of the secretariats, and also official documents, because this is basically what most of the time we end up doing, writing documents and keeping them available to the parties. At the time also, a governance body was created for the initiative, and so we had a steering committee that was created and a working group. So the steering committee was basically meeting once a year and discussing the strategy for the initiative and what we were going to take as priorities. And the working group was just basically functioning intersessionally and implementing the activities. The first meeting of the Infomia was in June 2010. And since then until now, we have already done 13 meetings of the steering committee and multiple meetings of the working group. This is more on demand during the implementation. And so what did we do in those meetings? Well, we discussed standards for data schemas. And if that is intimidating, I would say it's nothing more than just agreeing what data elements we are going to put in each data type. So if we take, for example, decisions, we want to know in which meeting this decision was taken and also on which agenda item, for example. So just to read a few examples. And then application program interfaces were also discussed. If that is intimidating, that's also very simple. It is basically a mechanism for computers to talk to each other without the intervention of the human So if you set up appropriate mechanism through APIs, computers can exchange data automatically. And that is what we were looking for, tools using modern technologies that we could use without really spending a lot of resources. And so in general, the work was functioning in work streams, and we had throughout the many years many different work streams. But among those, we had technical work streams and semantic indexing, where we discussed, taxonomies and glossaries and so on, as mechanisms for enriching the data that we already had and making it more useful for navigation on websites and also for searching. We also discussed web archiving to keep institutional memory of our organizations, e-learning, national reporting, outreach, and a few others that I didn't list here. And of course, you will see also presentations today on joint Informia portal and other websites that have been developed. You tell me when I am going out of time. I don't want to.
Please go ahead.
So right now, the Informia has 26 MEA secretariats and that are hosted by 5 UN organizations. And just for you to know, thanks to the support from UNEP, we have acquired ICT infrastructure that is common for Informia group, and it is hosted by the BRS Secretariat. So how the Informia works. Let me see if I can explain that in very few words. The principles that we have used is that information and data remains with the owners and the custodians. So basically, these are the secretariat members are the owners of the information, and they maintain the information, but then they put it in the API and other MEAs can harvest it. And these are the terminologies that we use. Basically, you can collect the information that is similar from different MEAs and make aggregated information. You will see also examples today of this. And then that we will start small and expand as resources permit. We develop standards for automated data exchange, I already explained, and using internet technologies. Then the taxonomies was already mentioned. And one of the elements that was also important for us was the recognition that different MEAs didn't have the same level of expertise and resources in order to handle the data. And so we also put a mechanism for supporting those MEAs who had less capacity. And also through resource mobilization that we already mentioned, that we are getting support for this from the EU for already many years. So I want to bridge a little bit here now into the Informia different phases. In the beginning, while we were focusing on the data that is clearinghouse type of data that we were managing over the years, it became evident that we also needed to move into creating new content. And this is where the e-learning platform came about in the Informia. And at the moment, this e-learning platform that was created and is hosted also on the servers that are in the BRS Secretariat. We already have over 50 training courses in multiple languages, and we will also hear about from others. And other examples are Judicial Portal, which you will also hear from others, and Negotiators Toolkit that Peter is going to talk about. And here you have the URL of the Informia, so if you want the e-learning platform. Okay. Yes, I am going to just stop right here by doing a publicity post. This is my colleagues wanted me to mention that one of the last training courses that was developed by the BRS Secretariat is also now available on the Informia and in the UNCC e-learning platform. This is a one one-stop shop on strategies, tools, and guidance to tackle plastic waste. So it's a great training course that we encourage all of you who really interested in the plastic waste to take. I will stop right there. I had a few other things, but I will be happy to take questions during the questions session. And also we have a booth downstairs for the BRS. If you are interested in latest technologies such as artificial intelligence and so on, we can give you more details right there. But just to give a space to my colleagues, I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Osmani. Side event ongoing parallel on plastics, so feel free to share the information that Osmani has shared with your colleagues who are attending the other side event. So Osmani, you have set the stage for this event. You have highlighted the power of data and information and also the links with the Secretary General messages, but also why knowledge management activities are important and the synergies and cooperation that already exist among the conventions. Some of them are here, but not all. And you have mentioned 26 are currently using Infomea or highlighted there. And also you have brought some of the, started highlighting some of the challenges. We will now move, we have a chance to have with us other secretariats. So including a secretary that we are not used to have here at the Chemicals and Waste Conference of the Parties. So we have our friends from the Convention on International Trade and Endangered Species on Wildlife, Fauna and Flora. I keep reminding the name, the acronym is CITES. We have with us Haruko Okusu, who is the chief of the Outreach and Projects Unit of the Convention. And we have also Shashika Sedera-Etige, who is an Associate Information Officer. And so they will deliver jointly this presentation, and Haruko will start. So Haruko, you have the floor. And you will highlight, you will showcase on country profiles and compliance database some of the tools you have developed under the convention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, especially first of all, to the BRS Secretariat for allowing the side event to happen and for also inviting us to the side event and to the Geneva Environment Network for facilitating the side event in such a nice and smooth manner. As well as our fellow 20 plus secretariats of MEAs of different types of subject areas for really creating this sort of a group of practice of knowledge and also for information sharing. And we have a very collegiate atmosphere across different subject areas that really allow us to be sort of a one body of knowledge management, data management. So I'd like to highlight a little bit about our case. CITES has been one of the founding members of the Infomea initiative, along with UNEP, and we very much thank UNEP for carrying this forward to allow MEAs like us to really join this initiative. And although we have been a part of this initiative, we have had many challenges from the beginning, and the big one being the financial aspect, that it's very difficult to fund a lot of the data management improvements that we'd like to do as ICT managers, knowledge management experts. Just to give you a very brief 30-second background about our convention, CITES, as Diana has already introduced us, Convention on International Trade and Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. We are one of the few conventions that are part of the biodiversity cluster. So, and we have been in presence since 1973, and currently we have 183 countries and the European Union as party to our convention. We cover specimens of around 40,000 plants and animals. And we also deal with international trade in live, dead parts and derivatives of these species. And our aim is to ensure that international trade in these species that are protected by CITES do not go extinct or do not have their survival in the wild threatened through trade. And this trade includes import, export, re-export, and also taking in from the high seas, which is called Introduction from the Sea in CITES lingo. We have a dynamic and adaptive instrument, which are legally binding, and we have 3 different categories where we put the different species so that they are accorded different levels of protection, different levels of trade regulation to make sure that the trade remains legal, sustainable, and traceable throughout its lifetime. Now, the challenges that I wanted to show you is that we have been trying to strengthen our support for parties being more compliant with the convention's requirements. We have actually quite a lot of compliance measures, and if the parties are unable to meet them, they do risk becoming subjected to trade measures, including trade suspension, either partial or total trade suspension. However, we found that parties have difficulties finding what their status is in terms of the different compliance measures. We have a very complex and lengthy compliance processes and numerous ones, which make it very hard for countries to know and others also to know where you are in the compliance process. For example, we have national legislation. Again, we have to have some certain requirements to be met with a national legislation, failures to which you could have a trade suspension. And there are requirements for submitting annual reports, both on legal trade and illegal trade. Review of significant trade, which are basically measures that countries have to make sure and to be able to prove that their trade is done at the sustainable level and that they do have a proper management plans, such as export quotas associated with that. We also have a process called the Article 13 process, for which we have various species and countries that are subjected to different requirements, different requests by the Standing Committee, which is our policy-related advisory body, who will request that country to come up with proofs of measured protection measures, management measures, and different enforcement-related activities to show that their trade in certain species are remaining legal and sustainable and traceable. And lastly, we have national ivory action plans and other measures where compliance is featured very strongly for some countries. Now, while we were looking into this, and these are very much a drive for countries needing to know what their status is, and this has actually brought in the opportunity to provide funding so that we would actually increase our ability to provide compliance-related assistance to parties. As we were starting to look into this, with thanks to the funding, we have also found that part of the situation or the problem is with the Secretariat, that we ask for a lot of information being submitted from parties. We collect a lot of information, a lot of data, but these are kept in by different units of the Secretariats, by different people, in many different formats that are not really compatible with each other. And this is the interoperability part that we were also talking about. We had national reports, we had annual export quotas submitted by parties, trade exemptions, different domestic measures that are different from the provisions of the conventions, different information regarding permits, and also even information about who the focal points are, such as the management authority, scientific authority, and enforcement focal points. And you can see that some of these items are exactly the basic convention information that Osmani has mentioned as being things that are very common to all of the MEAs. And we found out that since these are kept by different individuals in the secretariats, some of them are in Excel, some of them are in PDF, some of them have web pages on a flat page. We have all this information, and parties are not really fully benefiting from the information that they were actually asked to submit to the Secretariat. And we are responsible for making this available to assist parties, especially if they're newcomers to the convention. They need to know immediately what they need to do, where they are, who to contact, and so on. So this is where the journey really started in our data management, and this is one of the examples. So where did we start? We started first by really benefiting from the committee of practice that we have with the InforMIA initiative to talk to other MEAs to see how do they do it. how do other MEAs organize their information related to compliance and also related to other national authority related information. And compare that with what information do we collect as opposed to what they collect, and how do we actually make this available on our website? How do we keep and update that information? How often do we update that? How often do we update it on our laptops, and how often do we upload that on our computers? How do we use that to help determine priorities or gaps to help compliance and capacity needs of developing countries? And lastly, how do we actually make sure when we clean up and organize these data so that they can actually link to other databases so that they're updated automatically? For example, we have another database that looks at species name information. And how do we make sure that when the species nomenclature changes, that the information that we have don't have a break in the linkages, but we still update continuously using the updated nomenclature, and so on and so forth. And this is one of what's shown on the screen is one of the examples that we thought was very useful and inspiring, which was from the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands of International Importance. And we found that they have this country overview page, where you can sort of see on a single page who the focal points are, where the Ramsar sites are in that country, what kind of species are there, and what kind of official documents related to their governing body meetings have they been involved in. And we thought this is something that we would like to emulate. We want to have something similar to this. So we started exploring this. There are other MEAs who have very similar country pages. So what we have done as a result of quite a lengthy, both strategic on how we want this to be available to parties, but also a lot of the technical and technological discussions on how do we actually make this information from a flat sheet of paper to something in a database that talks to each other, or that can be updated in many different ways by different colleagues of the Secretariat. We have been able to come up with a country profile page where all of these information, from the national focal points to compliance measures, status of national reporting, etc., to be displayed in a single place. And also using that, we have now a new way to search for compliance related information. So which countries out of the 184 parties are under certain compliance measures? So we were able to gather all this information thanks really to the information sharing and the tips, and also the technical sort of advice that we did receive through the Informia initiative. And we are also starting to look into what we can do next. So we would like the parties to be able to self-update their information. We would like also to improve the cross-searching of this information. Maybe we would like to make it a little bit more visually pleasant than just the text that we have, maybe maps, other infographics. And perhaps we could also link other official documents from the convention to be made available through this portal. So these are the kind of things that we are looking into, including keeping all this data also, again, available so that in the future we can exchange this information across different MEAs. Then we can look at different compliance needs across many different types of MEAs to see if there's a way to provide support to parties. I think with that, now I would like to hand over the presentation to my colleague Shashika, who can give a quick demo on what the different functions might look like for this country page.
Thank you very much, Haruka. Let me share my screen first. So, as Haruka mentioned, and of course Osmani mentioned as well, with the advancements of APIs, application programming interfaces, we have been able to concatenate various information that was scattered all across the website of the CITES website, and we were able to create one specific landing page which houses all of that different information, so that it could act as all-in-one place where parties could refer to different information. So what you can see here is the landing page, which is available from the CITES website, and under the About menu, it's housed here under the country profiles. And then, of course, you could see the list of countries on the left, and I will look up Sri Lanka, since I'm from Sri Lanka. So I have already loaded that profile on my browser. So here you could see the information under Sri Lanka, where you could see the overview, of course, at the beginning, and then we have the national legislation status as categorized as category 3. And then you can, of course, see annual reports and the status of annual reports. It shows as some of the reports are missing. And then, of course, further down, you could see the legislation status, what the party is actually in the process of doing in implementing the convention nationally. And then, of course, further down, you have a display of the years and the number of annual reports that has been submitted. And then on the country-specific measures, sorry, let me go over to the overview page, which has more core information about the party. So here you could see the country's basic information, so such as the region and the ISO code, which is LK for Sri Lanka, and then we have the flag of the selected country. And then, of course, the party status is shown there, the date of joining and entry in force information. Then we do have links to other databases that host different information related to CITES and the party itself. So under the CITES checklist, we have a pre-filtered list of species that Sri Lanka is mentioned as the population. We have a list of those species mentioned here. This was also mentioned by Haruko, where the 33,000 or close to 40,000 species are hosted. This checklist at one of the subdomains of the CITES. So, and then further on, we have the national contacts information, which for Sri Lanka, of course, there's two different categories: management authorities and the scientific authorities. You could see those information listed here. And then let me go back to country-specific measures, where different information regarding the control mechanisms are shown, as mentioned earlier. So we could see at the overview, there's links to different information. And then we have links to Infomia once again for showing different national legislation that's available at Infomia. And then we have permit information, which is a repository of sample permits, where the party or the interested stakeholders would have to log into the website in order to access the sample permits. And then it shows, of course, whether the security stamps are used. And then, of course, we have export quotas, once again filtered according to the selected party. You can see them here. And then we have links to different CITES listed projects for easy reference. Then I will quickly jump over to Lao PDR for showing example for previously mentioned recommendation suspended trade. So you could see that those information are harnessed and displayed here from different subsystems of the website. And then once again, Article 13 information is mentioned here using the different tagged documents on the website. And the legislation status is once again pre-filtered and shown on the website under this section. And review of significant trade, which species combinations are mentioned here once again, and the stage at which it shows the stage and meeting different few other information. And once again, annual reports are shown, and then national library action plans. There's progress reports which are shown in this section. So as as we talked about earlier, so most of these information were once again scattered all across the website. We were able to use the APIs and different information sharing mechanisms to harness and show this information in one place. And then, of course, under the reports, you could see the reports that we talked about earlier. The annual reports, annual legal trade reports, and implementation reports are shown. Then, of course, I would like to show the compliance mechanisms. So the compliance database, which houses this information that we talked about earlier, the national laws, review of significant trade information, missing annual reports, national library action plans, and Article 13. All of that information is mentioned here under this particular filter. So an interested party or a stakeholder could use this particular filter in order to look up the different countries or the parties that are subjected to one of these control mechanisms. So I will try to demonstrate that here on another tab. So in this particular sample, we have already filtered all parties that are subject to National Library Action Plans, category A being the most affected with illegal library trade, you could see here, and then there's different categories. And then, of course, I will try to go over to national laws while I'm taking this particular.
Thank you, Shashika.
Yeah, I'm wrapping up
Okay.
just 1 second.
Please, thank you.
So, and then with this particular filter, we could see the national laws loads in. So here you could see the different. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will move now with another multilateral environmental agreement, the Minamata Convention on Mercury. We have with us Ana Garcia, who is the Communications and Knowledge Management Officer of the convention. We have also online Jamie Knill from Canada, a party. So we will hear from Ana some tools that the Secretariat has developed. And Jamie will speak as a user, how she's using these tools. So Ana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Diana. Thank you everyone for the late side event and your time. And also thank you, the BRS Secretariat, for holding this side event on knowledge management and lifting the importance of this area and to our CITES Secretariat colleagues, and also informing us the community of practice. We are a young convention, and of course, thanks Diana from the GEN to make all this magic happen. We are a young convention, 5-year-old, but that also it's a mighty convention. We have been innovating and piloting some solutions and tools to support our parties, but also we have learned a lot from the other MEA's experiences, and especially from the Informia community. And I'm so glad that Haruko has shared the party's profile, because when we moved into our new website, we learned a lot on your experience, and we were very much inspired. So this is how we as a community kept growing with the main goal of supporting our parties implementing the different conventions. And as you can see, there are many things in common. In this presentation, I will share you one case. This is the online reporting tool that we have prepared to support the national reporting obligation. I will start with some background information, introduction about the Minamata Convention's national reporting obligation, the online reporting tool from the front end, from the user's layout, our user sees it, behind the scenes, how it looks from the admin side, the dashboard that we have developed, and what's coming next, our challenges. So without further ado, here, yes. According to our convention text, there's the obligation, which is common with other MEAs, for the parties to report through the Secretariat on the measures taken to implement the provisions of the convention and on the effectiveness of such measures and possible challenges to meet the objective of the convention. At COP1 in 2017, the COP agreed on the format, the timing, and also requested the Secretariat to prepare like an electronic version. So over there, we had this room for innovation and devising a solution that was a long-term solution. Moving on, you can see that here in this slide, that we have a format which is split in two formats at the same time. There's the full format that contains 43 questions to be answered by all the parties to the convention every 4 years. And every 2 years, the parties need to submit the responses of 4 of the questions contained in the full format. And both formats have 5 parts. Part A, which is the information about the party. Part B contains the questions. Part C are the possible challenges that the party might have in meeting the objective of the convention. Part D are challenges, there's a space for challenges on commenting on the format. And part D are comments in free text for each of the articles. Here you have an overview of the convention's national reporting timeline. Since now we have received 2 cycles. The first one was due by December 2019, which was the short report. And we have just received in December 2021, the first full reports. And then the Secretariat, you can see on the top part, we have used the information received of the first short reports to report to the ICC and then report to the COP. And now, in fact, we are preparing a report after being submitted to the ICC. It will be submitted now to the COP on the first full report. And just recently, some weeks ago, we opened the third cycle, which is about the short report. So it's a complex matrix, and I just want to conclude this background information with our amazing reporting rate. We are, I might say, very proud of our party's reporting rate in both cycles. In 2019, we received a 91%, and with the full one, 93% on the reporting rate. Moving on, before I introduce the online reporting tool, will I be able to play the video, or is it just, let us play a small short video on getting prepared for the online reporting tool. That I will move now into a demo session, which is mine. Okay. Yes. No. Now? Yes. Yes. Okay, so here you have a demo of the online reporting tool, as this is a test reporting user, but how a party feels when logging into our reporting tool. So there's, well, let me say also that we have prepared it in around 5.5 months. The fully fledged solution, it's available in the 6 UN languages, and besides all the information and the guidance here for the national focal points that the Secretariat has prepared, including the draft reporting guidance, and there's also an offline reporting tool, user guide, and an offline paper version to help parties to prepare and collect the information. So the parties, national focal points can see the 3 cycles. As I said, this is a demo. So I will open now in another tab the 21 national report. So as you can see in the navigation, the report can be replied in any of the 6 UN languages, as I mentioned. I will come back now to English because I want to mess it a little bit. And the first part is part A, but with the information on the party. But on the right side bar, you will see a completion status. And that also gives the opportunity, because it's a very complex report on most of the articles of the Minamata Convention, plus the comment section. So, and we will hear it from Jami, many of the information needs to be collected through different ministries. Therefore, we give the opportunity for the national focal point to start in any of the articles. But to start with now with RE, all the information regarding the party, this is a test, as I mentioned, is already pre-populated, so there's no need for the party to complete it. And usually all the information also on the national focal point will be there. If I go here, for example, into another article, all the information is saved automatically, but the national focal point can save, can move previously, forwards. And we have also a pipeline information. So depending on the reply, some options will appear. A good example is, for example, Article 7. So you will see that there are many questions, but if I reply here, no, it will go immediately, drive the user to Article 8. So this is very user-friendly. And another option that we have, and now I will show you it here with the, with the one that has been just launched a few weeks ago, that after the national focal point has completed all the parts, there's the option of previewing all the report. This is the short report, so the national focal point can preview all the questions before submitting it to the Secretariat. And once it's ready, can print a copy to save it, even though the Secretariat will provide a copy, or click submit, and then the Secretariat will receive the notification that the national report has been submitted by a party. Now I will move on with the slides, if you don't mind, Harvey. Okay, so what happens after the submission? So after the submission, the Secretariat will collect the reports, acknowledge and check for completeness and clarity of responses. We will also carry out a check on the data and information. After this, data and information provided by the parties will be used in preparation of different documents for the COP and made available on the Convention website alongside with the report. In terms of data management, the reports are accessible from the same Drupal website backend. We have, Osmani has talked a lot of interoperability, the same Haruko and Shashika. So one thing that we wanted to make it something that was a long-term solution and that was interoperable with the website in terms also of submissions, and avoid any duplication of efforts from the parties, but at the same time to be able to interoperate with other tools and platforms such as Informea. We've developed this tool using the Drupal, which is a UN standard, is the same platform where the Informea website is developed, also our website. So then it makes very easy to interconnect through APIs and other standards, the information through different platforms. So here you can see how it looks like. And in terms of admin, we can download the reports in different formats. namely in text, HTML, table, JSON. These are very like coding languages, but also we can customize in order to get the raw data if we wanted all the questions, if we want the complete reports, or we can do some kind of selection. And a new functionality that can be seen on the below part of the screen are the revisions, because the first time when we launched the report, we realized that some reports need some amendments after, either because the Secretariat need us for clarification or because the party approached us asking to amend a question after being submitted. Considering that this is an obligation, we need to have a log frame when the report was submitted by a party, and this cannot be modified. But we've added this functionality to keep some traceability when we need to amend and update the database. So we can keep track of the questions and the time and what has been changed on the database if that was required. And to finalize, I will switch now again to share the screen quickly on, is that one? Yes. On our dashboard that is interoperable with the database. So we have developed, this is about the 2021 full report. We have developed a dashboard containing 135 data visualizations consisting of the performance that you can see here, and responses, the quantitative responses from the parties. So you can see here the reporting rate, the total parties that needed to report, the number of parties, and the full report submitted on time. We have the reports by region, the languages, the gender, and if there were some attachment. And then for every question, we've included in every page the article, the question, and an overall reply per percentage of the yes, no, and other alternatives, and also a stack bar per regional group. This dashboard is the first iteration. It's actually using the Google API communicating our database with this platform, but we hopefully improve it in the future if we have the availability, of course, of resources to do more deeper analysis, cross-reference, and who knows if in the future we will be able also like to do some analysis on qualitative data. I will move now on the presentation to my final. Okay. That's my final slide. So some of the planning and challenges that we have. Now, I just briefly mentioned that we have added a new cycle because now parties need to submit their second short report by December. We are always doing some benchmark analysis based also on the parties' comments on Part D, and where feasible, update and incorporate it to the tool to make it easy for the parties to submit their obligation. We also have this plan and foresee to keep upscaling and improving the dashboard in terms of technology and also user experience, and create better visualizations to have more insight, and hopefully also connecting it to our effectiveness evaluation indicators. And something which is very concrete now is that we have some key items for COP5. One is consider the COP the 2021 national report, including the ICC outcomes, and make clarifications, agree on the reporting format, and agree on reporting guidance. And just to conclude that, I once again want to reiterate that we are glad of the excellent reporting rates from our parties, with more than 90% on both cycles. And with their strong commitment and their comprehensive national reporting process and online system, we hope to keep supporting our parties and make a contribution towards boosting the implementation of the Minamata Convention. And now I want to hand over and be thankful of Jami being here. Jami Neal is our Canadian Minamata Convention reporting expert, who prepared a very comprehensive report for the convention and will be able to provide more insights from the parties' lens. Thank you.
Just to comment, we are running a little bit out of time. We started late, so we will run maybe 5 minutes late, but we cannot run much more, so you will have to speed up if you don't mind. I'm sorry, Jamie. You have the floor.
No problem. Thank you so much, Diana, and thank you to the BRS Secretariat for hosting this event, also CITES, and of course, Minamata Convention, Anna, for inviting me to speak today. This is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart as the one who's actually doing the preparation of the national report for Canada. So with that, I'll try to be brief. We can go to the next slide. Why does national reporting matter? I think Anna did a great job of explaining kind of the breadth of information that's required for the report. It is an obligation and it is a key source of data for a lot of the convention processes, and as well as other information gathering initiatives outside of the convention. But most importantly, it's really important for identifying where we've done well, where we need to do better, and how we might be able to overcome some challenges. Next slide, please. Thanks. So we all know that reporting is an obligation under the conventions, but why else might parties want to really do a great job on completing their national report? We know that the data going into these tools, like the Minamata Convention's really great online dashboard, it's really only as good as the data being input. So there's other benefits that a party might want to consider in terms of preparing their national report. So firstly, it's an opportunity to kind of take a step back, take a really broad look at what parties have been doing. Have they been successful in implementing the convention? Where are the weaknesses? What kind of data gaps might there be? And how could they fill those gaps? The results of this exercise are really important, we found, to help prioritize our work and our resource allocation. It could also be a way to drive regulatory development and continuous improvement. Next. We also see the reporting as an opportunity to kind of tell the story of Mercury, well, for us, Mercury and Mercury management, how things have progressed over time, what are the data sources that we're using, and what are their limitations. Understanding the limitations is really important in terms of thinking about how the data could be used, and it also helps us to show what challenges we face when we're actually preparing the reports in terms of collecting the data itself, as well as analyzing it and trying to kind of piece it together to tell a full story. Another benefit that we see is the information sharing. So not only sharing the things that we've done well as a country, but also taking a look at what others have done. This is where I think the dashboards are going to be super helpful for a lot of parties. Taking a look at what other people are doing, have they been successful? How could we take what others are doing and innovate to make something that fits our needs? And looking more broadly at other opportunities to collaborate, maybe regionally or with bilateral agreements or things like that. How could we take projects to expand and scale up? And finally, we see this as a really good opportunity to raise awareness, both within the government, because we know there's always a ton of competing priorities. We have plastics and waste and climate change and other chemicals. So kind of preparing the national reports and having a really easy way to explain everything using those dashboards is helpful for us to keep the priority of Mercury, in our case, up on the radar of our senior officials. Finally, there's a good opportunity for public communication in this as well. So I'll talk about our process in preparing our national reports just very quickly. We have sort of a three-stage approach, really heavy on the work planning. This has to start about 8 months to a year in advance because of the wide range of information that we need to collect. So we start by reviewing all the guidance documents, reporting format, identify what information is really required, what's supplementary, and looking at all the information we have available, organizing it, figuring out where we need to collect more information, and thinking about the timelines that we need to do that. Secondly, we move into, sorry, could you go back? Thanks. We have an outreach and communications piece where we find our data providers and have a kickoff meeting for them. You really give them as much notice as possible and before we make a more formal request. What we've also found really helpful is breaking down the questions in the national reporting format into more simple questions. Like the format was made in kind of UN convention language, and that's not the language that we usually use to communicate within the government. And if you're not an expert in the convention, some of the questions can be a bit confusing. So then we do follow up on the request for information and clarify as needed. We usually have about 6 months to do this second step. And then we use the offline version of the reporting format to compile all of this information and then copy it into the online reporting tool. Really important throughout this is to plan and track the progress. We have to think about what we've done, when we've done it, who we've contacted, what the timelines are, and what's left to be outstanding. As part of this, we've developed an internal guidance process to really help capture all of this knowledge and streamline it for the next reports. Quickly on our data sources and the challenges that we've faced so far, we use a lot of information from release inventories, customs and trade data, both our domestic data as well as the UN Comtrade data. We've developed some surveys to reach out to other governments like provinces and territories. We have information collected from regulatory reporting and government experts. So we have over 25 different directorates that feed into this national report. So it really is quite a wide range of information. Challenges that we've had is that sometimes data requests can take a long time, like several months in length. Collecting data is sometimes challenging from different levels of government when they're involved. They have different priorities, different processes, different timelines, and data is not always available in the level of detail that we need. Sometimes it's too detailed and we have to aggregate it, sometimes not detailed enough, and so we have to make do with what we have. Okay, and this is the last slide, my final thoughts. Very encouraging to see such a high reporting rate for the convention. Really feel that openness and transparency in providing the national reporting responses is really key. The better we can understand ourselves and each other, the better we can all work together to improve the implementation of the convention and to make Mercury history. And a big thank you to the Minamata Secretariat for all of your efforts to help parties complete the national reports. There's been so much support. There's been a lot of online sessions. There's the guidance documents and just the overall availability of the Secretariat to answer questions. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's quite impressive to see all the work ongoing behind the scenes. There's really a lot ongoing. So now we move to the last presentation. We have with us Peter Spielman from the United Nations Environment Program Law Division, who will present more in-depth Infomea. I don't know if the users who are online with us in the room how much you use Infomea, but we at the Geneva Environment Network, we use a lot Infomea when we prepare the work that we do, being it events or other types of activities that we run. So we look very much to hear more what you are going to present today, Peter. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you to the Geneva Environment Network for organizing, to Anna, and to BRS for hosting, of course. So I'll launch right in. My presentation will focus on what it's been mentioned already, but elaborating a bit on what is Infomea, how it can be used, the demonstration, and looking a bit to the future of what the next stage looks like for Infomea. So to begin, what is Infomea? The UN information portal on MEAs. As has been mentioned already, it's grown to encompass 26 MEA secretariats, as well as a number of regional conventions and observers, and this basically covers the entire range of environmental issues. As it also has been mentioned, Infomea is both the collaboration of the MEAs, it's the network of practice and the shared experiences, and what Osmani was mentioning, the agreeing on the schemas and the standards, as well as the result of that, which is the public-facing portal where you can search and retrieve the information. So we won't dwell on this, but this is basically the survey of the MEAs that are the global MEAs that are part of Infomea. And interoperability has been mentioned as well. So I also won't dwell on this, but this is the core principle behind Infomea. So this is the APIs, the agreeing on standards and schemas. And the bottom line of Infomea, of interoperability, what we hope to achieve with that is, as much as possible, everything is automatically harvested. We're not recreating data sets, we're just sharing them. And it ensures that everything is up to date and there's not the conflict between records. So as Osmani mentioned, the MEAs remain the custodians of the data, but then it's shared interoperably with Infomea where it's pooled. And so what's the result of that? The result of that effort is the portal itself. So this is the public-facing infomea.org portal. The core content is, of course, centered or anchored around the MEAs themselves. The treaty text, the ratification status, and definitely the COP decisions. But also beyond this, you can see the different content types that interplay with this. And that includes national plans and reports, as Anna was describing. We have news and events. We have national laws. A lot of this comes from an existing database and a collaboration with Ecolex and IUCN. Increasingly, we're focusing on court cases, a big database of documents and literature, goals and declarations, so the SDGs, and MEA contacts. And so when this is all pulled together, the result is 300,000 documents. It's filterable against topics, against MEAs, against countries, adjustable by time frame, and indexed by this core glossary of 500 terms and concepts, and also searchable. So that's what Infomea is. Then moving on to why Infomea. Basically, what's the utility of pooling all this information and what was the need for it? So we know that environmental law is very fragmented. Often it's organized around MEAs and MEA mandates and specific environmental issues that arise in a particular context and time. BRS is, of course, very familiar with synergies and shared experiences within the chemical cluster. But a lot of these issues, of course, extend beyond chemicals and waste. So this is a poster we created as part of a set of promotional materials to sort of explain what is Infomea. So you can see the different clusters and how they interact. And that's just a backdrop to explain a bit the utility of this tool to search and retrieve this diverse and scattered information. So by way of example, if you take marine plastic pollution, which originates from diverse land and sea-based sources, of course, the mandate for BRS is fairly clear, and that plays a very important role, especially with the plastics amendments, but so do many other MEAs and treaties outside of the chemicals and wastes cluster. So for example, UNCLOS and the UN Waters Convention relate to how the plastics enters into the marine environment. The regional seas often have very specific protocols that relate to plastics and marine plastics. The biodiversity cluster in terms of how plastics and microplastics could, for example, affect the health of marine life and ecosystems. Even the climate cluster and UNFCCC in terms of the carbon impact of plastic pollution, and so on and so forth. So that's just by way of example, if you take a specific environmental issue, the utility of being able to search that across all the MEAs, even beyond MEAs, to content types like legislation, international goals, and jurisprudence, some of the other content types I mentioned in the previous slide. So in summary, it's a way to search the whole spectrum of normative environmental data, so legal documents across specific concepts, environmental issues. So now I'll quickly switch over to a demonstration just to show you a bit how to use the tool. So this is the homepage of Infomea. It's actually just got a very recent facelift to add this promotion for the new negotiators toolkit, which is what I'll conclude with. But so the core of what already exists and what's been accomplished over these 14 years of collaboration with the MEAs on Infomea. So the information, the data, as I mentioned, is arranged filterable by these different filters, and it's searchable by terms. One of the key ways that it's organized is around this glossary, the Law and Environment Ontology, or LEO. So this is 500 or so terms organized into these 6 clusters. And so this is a key way to basically find all this information by concept. So if we take, for example, hazardous waste, then you can see the definition in other languages, the connection to related concepts and terms, and then the content itself. So here's the core content, of course, is the MEAs. So you have, not surprisingly, Basel Convention, Stockholm Convention, but then you also have some of the regional seas conventions, some of the regional waste conventions, and you have these categories of articles and paragraphs that are tagged to this term of hazardous waste, decisions and documents of those MEAs. So that's the connection between the different MEAs. But then, of course, there's all this additional content as well. So, for instance, related documents, legislation, and then I'll just take one, for example, which is goals. So if you go to goals, you can see these 3 SDG targets are keyed specifically to hazardous waste. If you go to 12.4, then you can see there's also another way to approach this information. If your starting point is from the goals, you can do this as well and see that it sort of broadens the concept as well to, for instance, include Vienna Convention and air particulate and so forth, so on. So that is the first way. Of course, there's a number of, I won't go through everything. Just one other example is if the specific term doesn't exist in the LEO, then you can also free text search. So then, for instance, if I do microplastics, you can see 665 results, and then this spans from, for instance, UNEA decisions, decisions of MEAs, and from this, and you can choose the specific what you're looking for. If you're looking for reports, if you're looking for law, you can filter by region, by MEA, by party, by time period, and this would apply to the other approach of LEO concept as well. And then the last thing I wanted to mention just very briefly is, as Anna had been, Saitis had been mentioning as well, in terms of the party approach, this is one other way to organize and access the information is you can go to your specific country or the country you're interested in, and this has a lot of the same information, including country contacts, national focal points, legislation, and all of the content that we've been through already in these other filters. So this is where, the last sort of components. This is more Infomea. So this has also been around for maybe 6 or 7 years. The core of this e-learning platform is we at first wanted to have an introductory level course for every MEA. This was produced with the Secretariat. It's fairly concise. It's just a quick way to get an overview of the MEA, how it functions, what's the purpose of the MEA, the objectives. What we're moving to increasingly, and BRS is really on the forefront of this actually, is these second tier, deeper learning, deeper level courses that go into greater depth on a specific subject, or maybe technical depth, or for a specific user group. So we have the example that Osmani mentioned already on the plastic waste and the Basel Convention. So you can get that here from the chemicals and waste cluster. We also, which might be interesting to this group, especially people who engage in COPs, we have this new course on the basic principles of chairing and the role of chairs in meetings of the BRS conventions. This is produced by BRS, but is available to the public, and I think it'd be interesting to other people as well. I'll just mention quickly also with Anna's help and leadership, we had the first specific course on gender and a convention. So this is on Mercury and gender. And then in general, in environmental governance, more generally, we have this course on online negotiations, which could be of interest as well. So this is where we've reached so far with Infomea. What I want to do now is where we see that we're going with Infomea. So I don't have time to go into some of the associated platforms that we've created that for the judiciary, for country focal points that go into more specific directions of legislation or jurisprudence. But that's basically, so one is LEAP, one is the judicial portal. You can ask me about it after if it's of interest. But what that's allowed us to do is a bit refocus Infomia, the core Infomia, on what was its original audience, which is national focal points and MEA negotiators. And so the flagship first tool of this initiative is the Negotiators Toolkit. So this is a brand new portal on Infomia, just launched in the last few days, thanks to my colleague Katie, who's been working to the last minute. And so the idea of this is it's meant to be a comprehensive online knowledge base on all the aspects of MEA negotiations and related processes. And so this is meant to assist negotiators to more efficiently and effectively prepare for and participate in international environmental negotiations and meetings. So this is really meant to repackage a lot of the material that exists for a specific user group of negotiators. So it has 5 main sections. A particularly important section is the Negotiators Handbook. This is based on a handbook that's produced by UNEP and the University of Eastern Finland. The last one was published in 2007, so this is an anticipated update. It's still a draft version, but the idea is, so we have only one section from the draft version available now. The idea is that this will be an interactive version of this handbook, where provisions are basically linked to different resources within the portal. So 3.1.1.5. Credentials is, I think, often a hot topic. So you can see, or no, sorry, it's a bureau. Anyway, so this is, you can see here, it's connected to case studies. It's connected to an e-learning manual and so forth, right? So I shouldn't have done that because I have to get back. Okay. So this is the first section. Then there's 4 other sections basically covering training materials, case studies, rules of procedure, and glossary. So I'll start with rules of procedure. This is useful because rules of procedure can often evolve over time. Sometimes they're a little bit hard to find. So this then connects to the copy that's on the MEA site, but it's useful just to aggregate and have available in one place all the different rules so that you can compare what other MEAs are doing. Then next we have the training materials. This is basically just a collection of materials that we already have within UNEP, within the MEAs. So it's e-learning, it's manuals, it's PDFs. How am I doing?
You're ready to.
I'm over time, I need to wrap up.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just briefly then summarize the other case studies. These then relate to specific aspects of the negotiating process. So on voting, on credentials, on the bureau, on whatever it is. So these are drawn from the handbooks, but also some of the training materials that I mentioned before. And then finally, as with Infomia, all of it's organized around a glossary. So this also comes, or is based on the previous handbook glossary, but then draws from some other references. So then ultimately, once everything, as the library grows, it will be all tied to these specific terms, so you can both understand what they mean and be able to search by these terms. So that's the presentation basically on Infomia and the Negotiators Handbook. I had a slide on basically next steps, but we can just very quickly in terms of things that are keyed to negotiators and focal points, potentially a compliance section, which already has a bit of a concept note, project documents and schemas, as Anna was mentioning, financial rules and procedures to be able to aggregate them, a couple other things on the horizon, but I'll leave it there in the interest of the time.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you.
We promoted the handbook that shared, and the aim of this event was to present tools that contribute to facilitating the parties' work in the implementation and compliance of the respective conventions. I think we had very good examples. The presentations were longer than expected, but when we start demonstrating things on computers, it always takes more time than initially expected. So apologize for being long. We will definitely promote the video of this event and the tools that you have presented. So I think we can once more applaud everybody for the hard work that so it was really important to also have an opportunity to have such a side event, which is a little bit unusual in this here when the parties are meeting to show these tools. So thank you very much. So with that, you are all now free. Thank you very much to our speakers today, to the audience, which is still online despite the late evening in Geneva. I see that we have many collected from Geneva, but not only. And thank you also for the audience in the room. With that, 2 more days to go here in Geneva. Tomorrow still side events, so feel free to join those. Thank you very much.
Why did it make this not turning?